Build up your glass production, clear up the forest, build the best buildings and livestock in this new re-implementation of 2013 game Glass Road, Black Forest.
And today we'll be teaching you how to play Black Forest, game designed by Uwe Rosenberg and Tito Lorenz and published by Feuerlandspiele.
And hello everyone, it's Stella.
And Tarrant from Meeple University.
And hey, if you enjoyed this video after watching, you really help us by like, subscribe, and let us know what you think in the comments. That seriously will help us to bring more videos. Alright, now let's get to the classroom.
In Black Forest, players are 13th century glassmakers in the Black Forest, trying to grow their prestige as glassmakers, while also handling the day-to-day grind of subsistence agriculture. Players will move from village to village, visiting the tradespeople, to build up their estates, gather resources, and produce provisions and glass. Whoever gathers the most points from resources, animals, and buildings by the end of the game will be the winner. I'll talk first about the 3 or 4 player game, as there are a couple of things you need to do with a dummy player at 2. To set up, lay out the main board, and semi-randomise the 17 tradespeople into the village spaces by placing each of them onto a space which matches its back. Shuffle the stack of job tokens in the bottom left of the board. Set up the 2 small building boards and the 1 large building board. For the small buildings, lay the tiles out on their matching spaces from 1 to 36, with the bulk of them placed on their A sides, and 10 at random flipped to their B sides. For the large building board, use the side corresponding to your player count, and seed it with random tiles of the appropriate number. Leftovers are returned to the box. Give each player a resource board, a starting estate, a pawn, and the matching colour reminder token. Fill your estate with the indicated tile overlays. That's 3 forests, 2 ponds, 2 fields, and do note the pond field tiles are double-sided, and a glass hut with a progress marker on the bottom space. You do not gain the printed cattle or pigs. These are capacities, not starting resources. Make supplies of the remaining forests and pond fields, as well as pastures and small estates. You can return leftover large estates and glass huts to the box. Also make supplies of cattle, pigs, and triple markers. To set up your resource board, rotate each dial to its 8 o'clock position and place each of your resource markers on its printed starting location. These printed resource icons play no further part after setup. Also place this job reminder token on the printed space here. Choose a first player, give each other player the bonus starting resources printed here, and you're now ready to play. Before we talk about any of Black Forest's actions, we first need to understand how to gain, spend, and produce resources on your player board. Your board has 2 wheels on it, your glass production wheel and your cooking wheel. Each wheel has this dial on it, and that splits the wheel into 2 parts, a larger part containing basic resources and a smaller part containing refined resources. On your glass wheel you have sand, charcoal, water and wood, which go into producing glass. And on the cooking wheel you have porridge, meat and another charcoal disc, and these go into cooking commodities and provisions, for which there are 2 discs. You also have a track for bricks. It's not part of either production wheel, but counts as a basic resource. Each token's position on the wheel or track tells you how much you're holding. Right now I have 3 bricks, 3 wood, no glass. You can hold at most 7 of each basic resource and at most 3 of each refined. Throughout the game, you'll frequently gain and spend basic resources. When you gain, advance the marker on that track, and when you spend, reduce it. In the specific case of charcoal, when you gain, you must choose one of the 2 wheels on which to gain that charcoal. You can't split between the 2. But when you spend, spend in any combination from either wheel. If an action would ever take you above 7 of a basic resource, suppose I were gaining 5 bricks, then gain only as much as you can and ignore the rest. The refined side works in much the same way. When you gain a refined resource, increase it, and when you spend, decrease it. If you're gaining or spending multiple provisions, you can always split between the two tokens. However, the key difference is that there aren't that many actions in the game which will let you directly gain these refined resources. Mostly, you're going to have to produce them yourself. This will happen automatically and non-voluntarily as soon as the dial has space to move on the wheel. So right here, I took an action which gained 1 sand. Immediately, I must now rotate the arms of the dial until it no longer has space to move. This signifies my glass hut having spent 1 of each basic resource to produce 1 glass. This is good because it doesn't cost you an action to produce these refined resources. In fact, it even happens in the middle of resolving one of your other actions. For example, if I gained 2 porridge now, I would move the dial after the first one and gain the second one afterwards. But it's a double-edged sword because you need to plan ahead. If I have an action planned, for example, which requires me to spend 1 meat, but ahead of that I take an action which gives me 1 porridge, then immediately my meat must get consumed, making it no longer available for the action I had planned. The wheel rotates only if there's free space on both sides. If I gained these resources, I would still have to spend 1 provision from this disc before the wheel would rotate. If an action lets you spend and gain, you must always complete all your spends before all your gains. When an action grants you a benefit, you must claim it in its entirety if you can. And if you're gaining multiple benefits, then you may claim them in any order. Black Forest is played in turns, starting from the first player and going clockwise round and round the table until the end of the game is triggered. The options for a turn are shown on this tile, and you'll either complete the top steps in the order printed, or you'll take a begging turn. The majority of turns are resolved using just these 2 steps, and so that's the type of turn I'll talk about first. The first step in such a turn is movement. On your very first turn, this means placing your pawn into an empty village space in any one of the 5 villages, whether there's another player present in that village or not. There is never a resource cost for making your first movement. On all subsequent turns, you must move your pawn to a different space. This could mean to move to a different empty space in the same village for no cost, or it could mean to move to an empty space in any other village. To do this, you must pay 1 provision for each road you travel. So this yellow movement would cost 1 provision, this blue movement would cost 2 provisions. There's no limit to how far you can travel, but you must travel by the cheapest possible route. Additionally, if there are any other players' pawns already in the village you finish in, then you must pay each of those players 1 basic resource. This applies only to your destination, not the villages you cross through, and applies only if you move to a new village. For this payment, the player who moved always pays the 1 basic resource, although the recipient has the choice whether to receive it or not. So here blue chooses to lose 1 wood, red decides whether to leave it alone or gain it and cause production. After moving, you must visit 1 or both of the adjacent tradespeople. If you visit both, you can do so in either order, but you must complete 1 before resolving the other. You can't choose a space if you can't legally use at least 1 of the 2 tradespeople. So what do these tradespeople do? Some are simple resource exchange. With the charcoal burner, spend 1 wood to gain 4 charcoal. At the brickmaker, spend 1 charcoal to gain 4 bricks. At the furnace maker, you'll spend 3 bricks to improve your glass hut 2 steps. When you gain this icon, advance the glass bead on your estate board. When you reach the top of this board, you immediately expand your estate. Place a new small estate board beside your original one. Seat it with 2 forest tiles, and move your glass hut piece to that new board, covering the top right corner and placing the bead back at the bottom. Having done this scores you 2 points, and it reveals a stable on your original board where you can keep cattle. This is thematically consistent with 13th century glassmaking. You would set up a glass hut in an area with a lot of forests because you needed the wood for your kilns, and once you'd been there for a while, you relocated your hut to a new wooded location. This action is the only way to build up more space in your estate. A large number of the game's tradespeople will take actions based on the tiles you have in your estate. If you visit the lumberjack, you cut down 1 forest, removing the tile from your board, to gain 4 wood. Visiting the farmhand allows you to plant 1 new field into an empty space in your estate, or spend 1 wood to build a pasture, again into any empty space in your estate. With the top half of the gardener, you can spend 1 brick to build a pond. To be able to place any one of these 3 single tile improvement types, you must have an empty space in your estate to place it. As a free action before or after any other action on your turn, you can destroy a pond, field or pasture to free up space. However, you're not allowed to freely destroy forests or any other type of tile you may have built. Ponds and fields are helpful because, with the right tradesperson, you can produce from your estate. So if you choose to activate the lower half of the gardener, count up all of your ponds and gain 1 water per pond. With the cook, gain 1, 2 or 3 meat if you have 2, 4 or 6 ponds, or gain 1 porridge per field. And with the glassmiller, gain 1 sand for each of your ponds. There are 2 types of animal that you can keep in Black Forest, cattle and pigs. If you visit the cattle farmer, simply gain 1 cattle, and if you visit the pig farmer, gain 1 pig. With the landowner, spend either a porridge and a water or a brick and a water to gain 1 of each. Every animal you hold must be kept in a valid space in your estate. An uncleared forest can hold 1 pig. A stable, for which you start with 1 and reveal 1 each time you move your glass hut, can hold up to 2 cattle. And a pasture can hold up to 3 pigs or up to 3 cattle, but not a mix of both. You may freely rearrange your animals at any time, but if you're ever holding more animals than you can accommodate, then you must discard down. At the end of the game, any animals in pasture spaces will be worth 1 point each, while during the game they give you benefits at other tradespeople. Visit the herder and you can gain 1 porridge for every 1 of your cattle, or 1 wood for each pig you have in a forest. At the butcher, convert a pig to 2 meat or a cattle to 3 meat, in this case discarding it from your domain. This icon lets you construct a building, and this is probably the most important action in the game because the vast majority of your engine building and points will come from building. The builder constructs a building, the carpenter advances your glass hut or constructs a building, and the woodworker cuts down a forest to gain 1 wood and construct a building. You can't use the woodworker for just this part of the action. You must construct a building when taking the action. Choose any one among the 40 or 41 building tiles placed in setup. The resource cost is shown down the left-hand side of the tile you choose. It always includes some combination of bricks or wood, and based on how powerful it is, some glass. The left column of each small building board has no glass cost. The middle costs 1, the right-hand column costs 2, and each large building costs 3. Some cost some additional resources or require you to remove certain tiles from your domain, and a few have an additional prerequisite. This one, for example, to construct it, you'd have to have at least 3 ponds in your domain. Having chosen the building, whether large or small, pay the cost, take the tile, and build it in an empty space. Its victory points now count towards your endgame total, and you immediately either gain or have access to the reward on the building. If the background is beige, this is an immediate once-off benefit which you must claim now and never again. Many of these combo based on the state of your domain at the time you build it. For example, if I'd built this, I'd want to have a lot of forests and only start clearing them after I'd gained the benefit. A blue background is a new free action available to that player, able to be used before or after any other action on that player's turn. These are usually conversions, so a player with a clay pit could now exchange 2 water for 3 brick at will. A red background is a triggered passive effect. For example, from this point forward, every time you visit the herder tradesperson, you would gain a charcoal in addition to the normal benefits. Finally, a gold background gives you a way of scoring victory points at the end of the game. And in particular, you'll find that the large buildings will often give you these ways of scoring. With so many buildings to choose from, the choice can feel overwhelming. But for the small buildings, that's where these signs come in handy, as each of these tells you the primary resource that you'll be gaining from buildings in that row. That should help you to focus on specific areas of need. Meanwhile, large buildings are worth a lot of points for meeting certain objectives, and you'll often build your strategy around the large buildings you plan to construct. The last tradesperson is the travelling merchant, and when you visit the merchant, choose any one of the basic resources, gain 2 of them, and then all other players may optionally gain 1 of the same. However, the travelling merchant has one other use, and this relates to the optional first step of your turn, which you complete before movement. This is the spend 1 commodity step. If you do it, you spend a commodity, and must then swap the travelling merchant with any one other tradesperson on the board. It doesn't have to be with the same type, meaning that this initial seeding will get mixed up as the game goes on. This ensures that the board stays dynamic and gives you the opportunity to move things to your own advantage. This is really the only use for commodities in the game, and since players will need to keep spending their commodities to keep their wheels moving, it ensures that the travelling merchant will be doing a lot of moving throughout the game. On a standard turn, instead of visiting tradespeople, you can complete a job. And the jobs come from this stack of tiles placed in setup. You won't be able to take this action early on, because all the jobs will still be in the stack. However, the second time each player's cooking wheel moves, you'll hit this reminder token, and this tells you that you can gain any one basic resource of your choice and flip and place the top job token from the stack. If it's a location job, which shows this green mountain icon, then place it on the space with the matching icon. If it's a tradesperson job, then place it in the job space of the village where that tradesperson is currently based. And if the corresponding place is full, then go to the next village clockwise with an empty space. From any space in a village with a job, you may complete that job as your sole action. To complete a location job, you'll first need to move there, as they're outside the villages, so it will always cost you at least a provision on your movement phase to get there. You then complete the job, but should make sure you have enough provisions because you'll need to move away again before you can take any more tradesperson actions. In either case, as soon as you complete a job, you always immediately draw another one and place it per the normal rules. As such, once everyone has seeded the board with the jobs from their reminder tokens, you'll have a fixed number of jobs on the board for the rest of the game or until the deck runs out. All of the jobs are high cost, high reward exchanges that you can make to suit a certain strategy. Your final option is begging. You can do this on any turn, but typically you'll only do it when you've run out of provisions and have no way of gaining more in your current location. If you beg from a village, just move to the central space of the village. If you beg from a job you completed last turn, just stay where you are, and gain 1 provision. The game end is triggered at the end of your turn if one or both of your provisions markers has at least reached this step on your wheel. All players now take 1 more turn, including the player who triggered the end, and then you'll count up your final scores, which you can track on the back of this small building board. Gain a point for each leftover glass, so here it's 2, and gain the points based on the position of the arrow on your cooking wheel, so here it's 9. Gain 2 points for each additional small estate board you've added. Gain a point for each animal on a pasture tile. Those in stables and forests don't score. Score the printed points on each of your large and small buildings, and score any endgame scoring objectives on your gold-coloured buildings. The player with the highest score wins. If tied, whoever would have been next to take a turn breaks the tie. To play Black Forest with 2 players, you'll need a third neutral player to fill up the board a bit. In setup, the starting player chooses the neutral's starting location. On any turn except your first one, if you move to the neutral's location, then you must pay a basic resource. So with blue's movement here, I'd pay 1 resource which the red player could take, and 1 resource representing my payment to the neutral yellow. The neutral pawn moves only when the travelling merchant moves. That is, when you take the spend 1 commodity option, you must swap the travelling merchant as normal and must move the neutral pawn to any empty village space, even one in the same village. Finally, the first player to resolve the job reminder does so in the usual way, but the second player to resolve it gains 1 basic resource as normal, but seeds the board with 2 jobs instead of 1, ensuring that there'll be 3 jobs on the board from this point forward. And that's how to play Black Forest.
And thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, let us know what you think, and share this video if you enjoyed, and hopefully you have a wonderful day. See you next time.